My mother-in-law kept joking I wasn't good enough until I played her voicemail at dinner. On Mother's Day, my 4-year-old said, "Grandma said Daddy should have married someone prettier. Is that true?" Her voice got tiny at the end, like she already knew the answer would hurt. I didn't shout. I didn't grab my phone and call my mother-in-law. I didn't make my kid feel guilty for repeating it. I made one small change. I opened a note on my phone titled, "The Joke Log," and I typed her sentence word for word, because in that moment I realized something. The jokes weren't just aimed at me anymore. They were teaching my child who mattered. My name is Claire. I'm 32. We live in a Chicago suburb where every driveway has a basketball hoop, and people judge you by whether your lawn looks handled. My husband, Ryan, is 34. We've been married 6 years. Our daughter, Lila, is 4. And my mother-in-law, Diane, is 61. Diane is the kind of woman who can insult you with a smile and then act shocked when you react. She calls it humor. She calls it teasing. She calls it how our family talks. But what it is really is a test to see who will let her set the rules. When Ryan and I first started dating, Diane's jokes were small. "Oh, so you're a teacher," she'd say, drawing out the word. "That's adorable." Or she'd look me up and down at a barbecue and say, "You're brave to wear that. I could never." Ryan would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper, "She's like that. Don't take it personally." Here's what I should have noticed earlier. When someone says, "Don't take it personally," they're asking you to accept something personal. Because if it wasn't personal, it wouldn't sting. When Ryan proposed, Diane's first words weren't congratulations. They were, "Are you sure?" She laughed right after, like it was cute. Ryan laughed too, that nervous laugh men do when they don't want to disappoint their moms. I didn't laugh, but I smiled anyway, because I was still trying to be chosen by a room that didn't want to choose me. Mother's Day at Diane's house is a yearly production. Matching flowers, matching napkins, a photo wall. Diane loves a photo wall because it proves she has a happy family, even when the family is tense. This year, Ryan and I promised ourselves we'd keep it simple. Show up, be polite, leave early. But then Lila said that sentence, "Daddy should have married someone prettier." I crouched down and kept my voice soft. "Sweetie," I said, "Grandma shouldn't say things like that." Lila blinked. "Why?" she asked. "Because she's 4, and 4-year-olds are the world's most honest lawyers." I took a breath. "Because Mommy and Daddy love each other," I said. "And grown-ups should be kind." Lila nodded like she accepted that. Then she asked, "Is Grandma kind?" That question hit me right in the chest. I didn't answer it directly. I said, "Go pick a card for Grandma, okay?" And when she ran off, I walked into our kitchen, where Ryan was rinsing strawberries for the fruit tray. I kept my voice low. "Ryan," I said, "your mom said something to Lila." Ryan didn't look up. "What?" he said. I told him. His face tightened, but he stayed quiet. He said, "She was probably joking." I stared at him. "With our kid," I said. "That's not a joke." Ryan exhaled. "I'll talk to her," he said. But his tone sounded like the kind of talk that ends in nothing. The kind that protects his mom's feelings, not my dignity. We went to Diane's house anyway, because we'd already promised. And because I was still hoping Ryan would be the one to stop it before I had to, as soon as we walked in, Diane hugged Ryan tightly, then hugged Lila, then gave me the lightest little pat on the shoulder. Not a hug, a tap, like I was a coworker. "Happy Mother's Day," I said politely. Diane smiled. "You're not a mother today," she said, laughing. "This is my day." Ryan chuckled awkwardly. I smiled like it didn't land. Lila ran to the dining room to look at the desserts. Diane followed her and said, loud enough for the room, "Tell Grandpa what Mommy made. Mommy tries so hard." Tries so hard. That phrase is Diane's knife. It sounds supportive. It's actually a critique. At 2:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text 2:14 p.m. from Ryan's sister Jess. "Mom's in a mood. Don't take the bait." In a mood. Like Diane's disrespect was weather. I opened the joke log and added 2 lines. Mother's Day, Lila repeats, "Prettier comment." Jess warns Diane in a mood. Then Diane did the thing she always does. She made a joke in front of an audience. She raised her glass and said, "To mothers, real mothers, not the ones who just married in." People laughed. Not big laughter. Polite laughter. That's the worst kind. Because it means people are choosing comfort over truth. Ryan's face went red. He didn't speak. And that silence felt like a betrayal, even if he didn't mean it to. I leaned toward Ryan and whispered, "Say something." Ryan whispered back, "Not here." Not here. Meaning not in front of his mom's audience. Meaning never, unless I force it. Diane smiled at me like she'd won. Then she looked at Lila and said, "Your daddy could have married a model, you know." There it was again. And Lila, sweet kid, looked confused and said, "Is mommy not pretty?" My stomach dropped, because now the joke had become a lesson. I stood up. Not dramatically. Just, I stood up. I said, calm voice, "We're leaving." Diane blinked. "What?" she said. Ryan stood too, startled. "Claire," he whispered. I looked at him. "I'm not doing this in front of our child," I said. Diane laughed like I was being silly. "Oh, relax," she said. "It's just teasing." "Just teasing." I looked at her, calm. "It's not teasing," I said. "It's disrespect." The room went quiet. And that quiet was the first time I felt like my dignity had space. We left. In the car, Ryan was silent. Then he said, "You embarrassed her." I stared out the window at the flat Midwest sky. "You mean I interrupted her performance?" I said quietly. Ryan exhaled. "She's my mom," he said. I nodded. "And I'm your wife," I replied. "And Lila is your child." Ryan didn't respond. At home, Lila asked, "Did Grandma not like my mommy?" I swallowed hard. "Grandma made a mistake," I said, "and adults are going to fix it." I said it like I believed it, but I didn't know yet what fix it would require. Because Diane wasn't going to stop. Not because she didn't understand, because she enjoyed it. And I didn't have proof yet of how intentional it was, until she left me a voicemail she didn't mean to leave. The next week, Diane acted like nothing happened. That's her superpower. If she pretends it didn't happen, you look dramatic for bringing it up again. She sent a text. Text 96. AM, Diane, tell Lila Grandma loves her. She was being sensitive. Being sensitive. My 4-year-old. I stared at the text, then added it to the joke log. Then Diane sent a second text. Diane, also tell Claire she needs a thicker skin. Thicker skin. That's Diane's favorite request. She wants you tougher so she can be meaner without consequences. Ryan read the texts and said, "I'll talk to her." But again, it sounded like a soft talk. So I made a small change. I stopped relying on promises. I asked Ryan for a boundary in writing. "Text your mom," I said. One sentence. "Tell her she cannot talk about my appearance or your better options around Lila." Ryan looked uncomfortable. He said, "That's going to blow up." I nodded. "Yes," I said, "because she's used to no boundaries." Ryan sighed, then typed. Text, Ryan to Diane, 7:18 p.m. Mom, please don't joke about Claire not being good enough or about me marrying someone else, especially in front of Lila. Diane replied in 2 minutes. Diane, wow, so Claire's controlling what I can say in my own home now. There it was. Boundary equals control. Ryan didn't reply. He put his phone down like he was done. But Diane wasn't done. 2 nights later, she called me. Not Ryan. Me. I didn't answer. Because I don't do surprise calls with Diane anymore. It's always a trap. She left a voicemail. Voicemail summary. 8:42 p.m. Claire, you need to stop poisoning Ryan against his family. You're not the kind of woman we pictured for him. We're all tired. I sat on my couch with my heart pounding. Not because it hurt to hear. Because it was proof. She wasn't joking. She believed it. And she said, we. Meaning she was speaking like a committee. I didn't delete the voicemail. I saved it. Then I did another small change. I sent the voicemail to my email, titled it, Voicemail, Diane, 8:42 p.m. And I added it to the joke log. Then I forwarded it to Ryan with one line. Me. This is not a joke. Ryan listened. I watched his face change as the voicemail played. The first second, he looked annoyed. By the end, he looked sick. Because he heard his mother say it plainly. Not to him. About me. Ryan whispered. She didn't mean it like that. I stared at him. How else could she mean it? I asked quietly. Ryan didn't answer. And in that silence, I realized this wasn't just about Diane. It was about Ryan's denial. So I stayed calm. I said, "We're going to counseling." Ryan blinked. "For what?" he said. "For your mom," he wanted to say. I could see it. I said, "For us. For the way this keeps happening." Ryan nodded slowly. "Okay," he said, but he looked like a man agreeing to something he hoped wouldn't happen. We scheduled counseling. Email subject, couple session confirmed, Thursday 6 p.m. Then Diane escalated again. She sent Jess a message, and Jess screenshot it to Ryan. Screenshot, Diane to Jess. "If Claire can't handle jokes, she can leave. Ryan will come back home eventually." Eventually. Like I was temporary. That line made something in me go very still, because it confirmed what I already feared. Diane wasn't fighting for Ryan's happiness. She was fighting for access, for control, for the feeling that she could still pull her son back if she wanted. If you were me, what would you do? Because a part of me wanted to call Diane and scream. But instead, I made the calm choice. I planned the moment when the truth would be undeniable. Not in private, not in whispers. In front of the same audience, she used to humiliate me. Because here's the harsh truth. People like Diane only behave when their image is at risk. And I had her image in my pocket. A voicemail, in her own voice, saying exactly what she always pretended was just a joke. The next opportunity came fast. Jess invited us to Sunday dinner, a small family dinner. She texted, "Jess, please come. Mom has been telling everyone you're dramatic. I want this to calm down." Calm down. That meant Jess was hoping I'd swallow it for peace. But I didn't go for peace. I went for closure. I replied, "Me, we'll come. But if Diane insults me again, we leave immediately." Jess replied with one word. "Jess, fair." Fair. I saved that too. Because I wanted no one to claim surprise later. Sunday came. We walked into Diane's house with Lila holding my hand. Ryan looked tense. Diane kissed Lila's head and said, "Sweet voice, Grandma missed you." Then she looked at me and smiled. "Hi, Claire," she said. "You look rested." Rested. Like motherhood isn't exhausting. Like she was taking inventory. We sat at the table. Food was served. Small talk happened. Then Diane, right on schedule, made her joke. She lifted her glass and said, "To Ryan, for choosing love," even when he could have had better. People laughed again. Polite laughter. I felt Ryan's legs shake under the table. He was about to stay quiet again. And that was the moment I realized I couldn't wait for him to grow a spine in real time. So I did it. Calmly. I put my phone on the table. Screen down. I said, "Diane, you said last week these are just jokes." Diane blinked. "Yes," she said, smiling. "They are." I nodded once. "Okay," I said. "Then you won't mind hearing one." The room went quiet. Ryan looked at me, eyes wide. Jess froze. Diane's smile tightened. "What?" she said. I flipped my phone over and hit play. And Diane's voice filled her own dining room. "You're not the kind of woman we pictured for him." Silence slammed into the room like a door. And that's when I realized the real ending of this relationship with my in-laws wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be Diane hearing herself, with nowhere to hide. The voicemail played for 11 seconds. That's it. 11 seconds. But those seconds felt like an hour. Because nobody could pretend they misheard. Diane's voice was clear. Cold. Certain. When I hit stop, the table stayed silent. No polite laughter. No, she's just like that. No one could smooth it over. Diane's face went red, then pale. Then she tried to laugh. A fake laugh. "Oh my God," she said. "You recorded me." I didn't argue the method, because it wasn't a recording. It was her own voicemail. I kept my voice calm. "You left it," I said, "on my phone." Diane blinked hard. Then she snapped, "Delete it." I stared at her. "No," I said quietly. Ryan finally spoke. His voice was low. "Mom?" he said. "Why would you say that to my wife?" Diane turned on him instantly. "Because someone has to tell the truth," she snapped. Truth. Her truth was that she wanted control. Jess whispered, "Mom, please." Diane ignored her. She pointed at me and said, "You're manipulating him. You're making him choose." Choose? Yes. That's what marriage is. I kept my voice calm. "He already chose," I said. "He married me." Diane's eyes flashed. "And look," she snapped, "now he's miserable." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I'm not miserable," he said. "I'm tired of this." Tired of this. Those words were the first thing that sounded like a husband, not a son. Diane leaned back, crossed her arms, and said, "So you're going to let her disrespect me in my own home." There it was. The classic flip. The person who disrespects becomes the victim. I didn't take the bait. I stood up. Not dramatic. Just done. "I'm leaving," I said. "Lila, too." Diane's head snapped. "You're taking my granddaughter," she hissed. I looked at her. "I'm protecting my daughter from hearing she should be ashamed of her mother," I said. Ryan stood too. He looked terrified, like he was about to lose his identity. Then he did something that surprised me. He said, "I'm leaving with them." Diane froze. Because she didn't expect Ryan to move. She expected him to negotiate. She expected him to ask her to calm down. But he didn't. He followed us to the door. Diane shouted behind us, "Fine, go. She can have you." Have you? Like Ryan was property. "In the car?" Lila asked, small voice. "Did I do bad?" My throat tightened. "No, baby," I said. "You did nothing wrong." Ryan gripped the steering wheel like it was the only stable thing in his world. He said, "I didn't know she was saying that stuff to you." I looked at him. "Yes," I said quietly. "You did. You just hoped it wasn't real." Ryan's eyes got wet. He whispered, "I'm sorry." That was the first real apology I'd heard from him about his mom. Not, "She's like that." Not, "Don't take it personally." Sorry. We drove home in silence. At 9:12 p.m., Jess texted Ryan. "Jess, Mom is furious." But she knows she said it. Ryan didn't reply. He stared at his phone, then looked at me and said, "What do we do now?" Now. This was the moment where marriages split. Not because of a mother-in-law. Because of how the spouse responds. I kept my voice calm. "We set boundaries," I said, "and we enforce them." Ryan nodded slowly. "And we wrote them down." Not a dramatic manifesto. Just 3 rules. Diane does not speak about me negatively, ever, to anyone, especially not around Leela. Visits are scheduled. No surprise drop-ins. If Diane breaks rule 1, we leave. Immediately. No debate. Ryan texted Diane the rules. Text 10:08 p.m. Ryan, "Mom, this stops now. You will not insult Claire. If you do, we leave. If you involve Lila, we won't visit." Diane replied instantly. "Diane, she turned you against me. You're choosing her over your mother." Choosing her. Yes, that's what marriage is. Ryan stared at it. Then he typed, "Ryan, I'm choosing my family, my wife and my child." I exhaled, because that line was a boundary in writing. Then Diane escalated. She posted a vague Facebook status. "Some women destroy mother-son relationships and call it boundaries." Comments rolled in. Hearts. "Stay strong." Diane loves an audience. But now Ryan saw it too. He whispered, "She's doing it again." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "And we're not responding." Because the smartest move against a performer is refusing to be part of the show. The next day, Diane texted me directly. Text 7:41 a.m. "Diane, you happy? You got what you wanted." I didn't reply. I screenshot it. I added it to the joke log. Then I did another calm move. I blocked her number. Not to be petty. To be peaceful. That week, counseling happened. We sat in a small office, and Ryan admitted something he'd never admitted. "I've been scared of my mom's anger my whole life," he said. The therapist nodded and said, "And now your child is watching what you do with that fear." That sentence hit Ryan hard. Because it's true. Kids learn by watching who you protect. Then the therapist looked at me and asked, "What do you need to feel safe?" I said, "I need Ryan to stop outsourcing my dignity to his mom's moods." Outsourcing dignity. That's what it is when you ask someone to swallow disrespect for peace. Ryan nodded. He said, "I can do that." And for the first time, I believed he meant it, because he'd already done the hardest part. He'd left the dinner, but the story wasn't over, because Diane doesn't stop at boundaries. She tests them, and her next test was going to involve the one thing she thought she still owned, Lila. The test came at preschool pickup, 2 weeks after the dinner. I was standing outside the classroom door when I saw Diane's car in the parking lot. My stomach dropped, because Diane never came to preschool. Not once. Not in 4 years. She didn't care about schedules. She cared about leverage. Lila ran out, smiling, then froze when she saw Diane. "Grandma," she squealed. Diane crouched down, arms open, sweet voice. "There's my girl," she said. And for a second, I felt conflicted. Because Lila loves her grandma. Kids love who shows them candy and attention. They don't understand the politics behind it. Then Diane stood up and looked at me with a tight smile. "I'm taking her for ice cream," she said. Not asking. Telling. I kept my voice calm. "No," I said. "You're not on the pickup list." Diane blinked like she couldn't believe the school had rules. "She's my granddaughter," she said. I nodded. "And she's my child," I said. "No." Diane's smile hardened. Then she turned to Lila and said, "Mommy is being mean." Mean. She put it on me, right in front of my kid. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "Lila," I said gently, "we're going home." Lila's face crumpled. Diane stepped closer. "Don't do this," she hissed. "People are watching." People are watching. Always. I looked at the teacher at the door and said, calmly, "Can you confirm Diane is not authorized?" The teacher nodded. Professional. "Yes," she said. "Only you and Ryan are listed." Diane's face flushed. Then she did something that showed me her real plan. She pulled out her phone and said, loudly, "Ryan said, it's fine." I stared at her. "Show me," I said. Diane hesitated. Then she tapped her screen and held it up. It was a text thread, but the contact name at the top was Ryan, and the text looked wrong. Too short. Too clean. No context. I took a breath. "Forward it," I said. Diane's eyes flashed. "No," she snapped. There it was. It wasn't real. Or it wasn't from Ryan. She was trying to fake permission. I opened my phone and called Ryan on speaker. Ryan answered immediately. "Hey," he said. I kept my voice calm. "Your mom is at preschool trying to take Lila," I said. "Did you approve that?" Ryan went silent for half a second. Then his voice sharpened. "No," he said. "Absolutely not." Diane's face changed. Ryan continued, loud enough for Diane to hear. "Mom, leave. Now," he said. "If you don't, I'm contacting the school administration." Diane looked stunned, like she couldn't believe Ryan wasn't negotiating. She hissed, "Ryan, don't you dare." Ryan replied, calm but firm. "I dare," he said. "You do not involve my child." Diane's jaw tightened. She looked at Lila and forced a smile. "Grandma will see you soon," she said. Lila looked confused. Diane walked away fast, like she wanted to leave before staff could document it. I picked Lila up, hugged her, and kept my voice gentle. "Grandma made a mistake," I said. "We're going home." In the car, Lila cried. Not because she understood disrespect, because she didn't get ice cream. And that's what makes this so hard. Adult boundaries hurt kids in the short term, but adult disrespect hurts kids in the long term. That night, Ryan and I added a new step. We informed the school, in writing, that Diane is not allowed to pick up Lila or approach her for removal. Email subject, pickup authorization update. Diane not permitted. The school replied, "Noted. We will document any attempts." Document. That word again. Receipts. Because people like Diane behave when there are records. Ryan called Jess, not to complain, to set a family boundary. He said, "If mom shows up at school again, we're filing a formal notice." Jess sighed. I get it, she said. She's spiraling. Spiraling. That's what they call it when someone faces consequences. Then, Diane did the thing she always does when she loses access. She escalated publicly. She posted, "Grandparents have rights." Rights. She wanted the internet to validate her entitlement. And then, she messaged Ryan. Text 10:14 p.m. Diane, if you keep keeping my granddaughter from me, I'll take steps. Steps. That was a threat. We took it seriously. We spoke to an attorney about what steps could mean in our state. The attorney said, calmly, grandparent rights vary, but your best protection is documentation of behavior and clear boundaries. Documentation. Good, because we had it. We had the voicemail. We had the dinner. We had the preschool attempt. Then I realized something else. The voicemail wasn't just a payoff moment. It was now evidence. Not for court necessarily. For reality. For anyone who tried to paint me as dramatic. Because the next time Diane said it's a joke, we had her own voice saying otherwise. The final confrontation happened a month later. Not at a holiday. At a neutral restaurant where Jess begged us to meet. Just 1 hour, she texted Ryan. For closure. We agreed. Not because we expected Diane to change. Because we wanted Jess to stop being the messenger. At the restaurant, Diane sat down smiling like nothing happened. I'm ready to move forward, she said. Ryan looked at her and said, calm. Apologize to Claire. Diane blinked. For what? She said. For what? Still pretending. I didn't speak. I watched Ryan. Because this was his moment. Ryan said, for saying she isn't good enough, he said, for involving Lila, for leaving that voicemail. Diane's smile snapped. I was venting, she snapped. Everyone vents. Ryan nodded. Then vent to a therapist, he said. Not to my child. Diane's face went red. She said, so, you're choosing her. Ryan didn't hesitate. Yes, he said. And if you can't respect that, you'll see us less. Less. Not never. A chance. A boundary. Diane stared at him like she didn't recognize her son. And in that moment, I realized the karma here wasn't Diane suffering. The karma was Diane losing her grip because the son she controlled with guilt was choosing adulthood. 6 months later, the house felt different, quieter. Not because we were perfect. Because we stopped living in Diane's emotional weather, Ryan and I did counseling consistently. We kept our boundary list on the fridge. Not because we loved rules, because rules protect peace. Diane stayed low contact for a while. She sent polite texts to Ryan. No more jokes. No more, he could have done better. But the apology never came. Not a real one. Then, on Lila's birthday, Diane tried one more move. She sent a big gift to our house with a note that said, tell Lila Grandma forgives Mommy. Forgives. My stomach dropped. Because that was the final insult. She framed herself as the victim. The forgiver. Ryan read it, went quiet, and then did something that surprised me. He wrote return to sender on the box. He didn't ask me. He didn't debate. He just enforced. He said, calm. She's not rewriting you for our daughter. That sentence was the real ending. Not the voicemail. Not the dinner. The moment my husband stopped managing his mother and started protecting his family. Final update. We didn't become best friends with Diane. That's not realistic. But we did create a safe distance. Diane sees Lila at supervised family events now, where boundaries are obvious. No private pickups. No secret conversations. And if Diane makes a comment, Ryan ends the visit. Calmly. No speeches. That consistency changed everything. Lila stopped repeating weird adult phrases. She stopped asking if Mommy is pretty enough. She started being a kid again. And that's the lesson I hold on to. If you're listening and you're in a relationship where an in-law keeps joking at your expense, please hear this. The problem isn't the joke. The problem is the partner who laughs with them. Because laughter is agreement in public. And I didn't want my daughter growing up watching me accept public agreement that I'm not enough. I played the voicemail that day not because I love drama, because I love clarity. And clarity is the only thing that ends a pattern. Here's what we learned from this. First, repeated jokes that target your worth aren't jokes. They're a pattern, and patterns teach kids what to tolerate. Second, your partner's reaction is the real story. A healthy partner doesn't ask you to be quieter. They ask the disrespect to stop. Third, don't fight performers with emotion. Fight them with documentation, written boundaries, and consistent exits. Fourth, if someone recruits your child into adult conflict, that's a hard line. Kids deserve safety, not secrets. And finally, consequences don't have to be loud. The calmest consequence is distance. If you like calm, realistic long story times with receipts, clear timelines, and real closure, subscribe to the channel. That's what we do here.